Welcome back to the Sports Vehicle Performance YouTube channel. Today we're going to be filming a buyer's guide on this Porsche Cayenne 958. Specifically the 3-litre V6 turbo diesel. So the 958, when it was launched, was a great step forward for the Cayenne. Far more modern in terms of looks, but also in terms of the features and the options you could spec on it. You know, things like all the updated head units, steering wheel. It just felt like a real luxury place to be when compared to the previous 955 Cayennes. So we're going to make a start by looking at the engine. So under here, we've got the 3-litre V6 TDI variant. These are overall quite a good engine, but they do have their issues. So we'll get started. First issue that we see commonly on our list here, we've put together, it will be the coolant governor. So there's a valve that sits buried in, let's take this off. Under here, you can't see much, but we can explain roughly where it is. So under there, you've got there's basically coolant pipes sitting underneath the EGR, which is here, and then obviously your inlets, you have to take all that off, and under there, there's a coolant leak that springs up. And basically, you won't know anything about it. You'll start to get smoke, steam, and you'll notice your coolant levels dropped. 9 times out of 10, as I say, you won't know because there won't be anything on the floor a lot of the time because it sits in the valley. So it's a common issue, and you know, if you've got those symptoms, that's more than likely the cause. As for the parts, they're readily available, and it's more the labour on them. The parts themselves are quite cheap, so that's something to look out for. And as I say, if it's got history of that being changed, it is a common issue, and obviously the more mileage and older these cars get, these issues kind of get ironed out because cars have them and then they get rectified and it doesn't happen again. Next up, the fuel injectors. So this car in particular has been in with us for a running issue. The owner reported a noise, a chuffing noise, so straight away that means it's the fuel injector chuffing. So you have a port in the side of the cylinder head down here, and when the copper seal washer leaks and fails, it will then be chuffing out a hole in the cylinder head, and that just releases the gas, kind of like a breather, and then yeah, you'll know therefore your seal's gone. So this car here has had a new seal fitted and it's all back up and running. So yeah, that's a common issue. Fuel injectors, and not only the seals but the injectors themselves can also be problematic. Moving on, still fuel related, the high pressure fuel pump can be rather problematic as well. It's not mega common, but when they do go, it's a big job. For example, the last one we had to do was a complete engine out, engine gearbox, the front subframe out the whole car. Mainly due to the fact the access is very limited, so you obviously take all your inlet EGR off, but the turbo here is in the way of some of the bolts, and on the particular car that we had to do, there were splines, which if you know or don't know, they're very fine teeth bolts, and basically you can't really get into them, they round quite easily, so to get good access we had to do that. So yeah, but again, if it's been rectified in the past, it's great, that it's had it done and it's something you haven't got to worry about. So service history is very key with these cars and the engines. Going back to what we spoke about, the EGR is another common problem. So that's obviously recirculates your exhaust gases, all emission stuff, and the same with the DPF. These can clog up, especially when you're driving the car around town, not getting it warm enough for it to do an automatic regeneration. So then that can mean you've then got to bring it down to a garage to have a forced regen carried out to clear it out. So yeah, most issues with these are caused by not, if you run it around town, you need to get them up on the motorway, get them hot, and yeah, just use them properly. Other little things, timing chains on these as well. So they can be quite common. Basically the chain will stretch over time with the age, mainly more in high mileage cars, but again, it's a pretty in-depth job to change the chain on them. So any history of that is also great. Along with, I think it was the tensioners on the V8 model, they suffered as well, but obviously this video is more about the V6. And then also you've got the valve lift solenoids. Again, it's not a major job, but they obviously control your valve lift and they'll put your car in limp mode and stuff like that. So again, all this stuff I'm saying, it sounds like quite a lot, but really it's just little things, and obviously they add up. But again, check the history of the car you're thinking of buying, and you'll see, if it's been done, that's great, and one less thing for you to have to worry about. So that's that for the engine. Now moving on to the ABS system and the brakes. So first thing we're going to cover is brake disc and pads. These, obviously being quite a heavy car, do get through a lot of disc and pads, just mainly, as I say, just the weight, the power and the performance of a car like this. And then the worst thing is they're also rather expensive to replace. You're going to be looking £500 upwards for an axle set. So, you're going to be into over £1,000 for replacements for a car set. So it quickly adds up, and it's, quite a simple thing for you to check if you're going to be buying a car. Take a look at the discs, feel for lips. These ones here are okay. They're not amazing. They've got, a few more miles left in them yet, but and just try and have a little look down at the pads. Again, it just depends on the style of wheels to how much you'll actually be able to see. These ones here are quite limiting. Yeah. Next up, about the wiring loom. So the car has a loom that comes down from the engine bay, and basically that powers your ABS sensor, and the pad wear sensor has one of those on each four corners of the car. We've seen quite a few of these that come into us basically with a pad light on the dash, and they'll be like, oh, my brakes are worn out. Turns out it's not, it's just the loom's been damaged, whether that's, from driving down the road, hitting a stone, just due to age. So yeah, those looms, I think they're about £200 odd each, maybe from memory. So again, it's not a biggie to change, but if you do have a lot on the dash, it doesn't always mean your brakes are worn. So that's just something to note there. Other thing is ABS sensors. So that's your wheel speed. You can get a light on the dash for that as well. And often it's mainly the sensor. If it's not the loom, it'll be the sensor. And these sensors, I know on Macans you had to change them in pairs because they released a later part number. So basically you couldn't have the old part number in one side of the car and the new part number in the other because they wouldn't talk to each other and the calibrations would be off. So it's always recommended to change them in pairs anyway, but on these ones you have to actually change them in pairs. So yeah, that's basically it for the brakes. And yeah, we'll now move on to the next thing. So we're now underneath. We're going to be taking a look now at the common issues with the transfer box. So it's quite a well-known thing in 958 ownership. The transfer box basically fails prematurely due to the clutch packs wearing down. There's a few reasons that can potentially cause this. One of the kind of more known ones is water ingressing in through the breather. Originally when they were designed, they had a breather facing basically so it allowed water into the box, and obviously that doesn't no good when water and oil get inside a gearbox. So that caused them to fail. Then Porsche released a revised version of the breather to try and, correct these issues, but they're still known for it, and yeah, they're never going to last forever basically. Regular oil changes is key on them, and if you're buying a car with history of it, that's a great thing that it's had done, because we've changed plenty of these now, and it's not a cheap thing to replace. You're probably going to be into sort of nearly £3,000 by the time you got the unit and paid the labour on it. The 8-speed gearbox in these are really good, to be honest. They do suffer though with the mechatronics and the torque converter wearing, especially on a high mileage model. But if you've got a good service history with the car, then you should have a lot less to worry about. So yeah, as we always say, service history is very important. So moving on to the rest of the car, talking about the suspension, particularly starting with the air suspension. So these obviously run air. They have their own issues. So things like the leaking air struts, you'll notice when they've gone because the car will be sagged and uneven. It could be down on one corner or down on the rear, and that's often either a leaking airbag on the suspension, could be a failed compressor, or it could even be one of the ride height sensors playing up. So there's a couple of issues there, but they're quite easily noticeable. If you walk up to a car you're buying and it's sagged, then that obviously shows you an issue. There's an issue there. Other options, so obviously the air suspension is optional, but it comes standard on, I think it's the turbos and the hybrids. But on some of the steel sprung cars, they are obviously a lot less to go wrong on them, but then the ride isn't quite as good. So it's one of them, you just got to weigh up your options. If it's got good history, then you've probably not got a lot to worry about with an air car. Steel is a lot more simple. Other things, so the PDCC, Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control, you've got a budget for more expensive repairs because obviously they have complicated anti-roll bars, and there's basically more to go wrong. As I said earlier, the air suspension is more to go wrong than the standard suspension, and the PDCC, there's more to go wrong than your air suspension. So yeah, that's it really. So you join me inside the car. these, you know, overall are very nice inside. You know, lots of technology, but it's all quite reliable. You've got to make sure to go around though, with there being lots of buttons, press every single one, check it functions as it should. You know, lights up your traction control, your sport modes, all your heaters, and then moving on to the radio. So this is PCM, as in all Porsches as standard. Obviously different variants for different age cars and different levels, but the early units, they do suffer with basically random freezing or even complete unit failure. They did improve it, and there were actually some software updates released to, you know, in an attempt to try and rectify these issues. Then I think one of the other common things is the amplifier. So obviously that gives you your sound in your car. You'll be driving along with the radio, your music on, whatever it is, and you'll just lose all sound. Everything will still be functioning on here, but you'll have no sound. So 9 times out of 10, that's the amplifier, which is in the boot. We've done a Bose one there before, not long ago actually, and yeah, the problem is with that, I think the amplifier from Porsche was about, it was in the £900 mark, put it that way. Labour, it's not too bad in terms of time to replace, but the cost of that job is just in the part. So yeah, as I say, overall, these are really nice inside. Check all your windows work as well. Literally every switch you can see, even things like heater vents, check they move and operate as they should. But yeah, they're generally quite a good car and a nice place to be inside. So to summarise this video, Porsche Cayenne 958 is a great buy. Value for money is incredible. You know, you'll pick these up for sensible money and you're getting a hell of a lot of car and technology for the money. Make sure you're buying one based on the history. Don't worry so much about the mileage. You know, if it's got the mileage and no history, then, you know, I wouldn't touch it. But if you've got the history to back it up, proven this car here has done 130,000 miles, and you know, it's still going strong. Just had a minor issue sorted out and, you know, back on the road. So yeah, they're great cars. Performance, economy, especially the diesels, they'll give you great performance and economy all at the same time. And you know, they're a great place to be. So yeah, hopefully you found it useful. And thanks very much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. And we'll see you guys next time.